Well, good morning, Sangha. This is Tukmin Tien Tai Z, and I am in the Budding Dharma Temple today at Arlington, Texas. And, um, and I'm pleased to be here with you all, and always pleased to join with my teacher, Thay Kozan, in running and participating in our services on Saturdays. So I have some thoughts, which probably doesn't surprise any of you. The issue with me is today I experienced something that our good friend Reverend Scott has experienced before, which is when I wake up in the morning, I go to my calendar and I look to see what's included for the day, and I always check, usually a week out, who's going to be speaking at the our Saturday Zoom Sangha. And so I pulled it up and I punched the date on my calendar, and it said, Tai Z, you're doing the Dharma talk today. And I went, oh dear, I have now experienced what Scott always goes through, which is I'm just going to talk off the top of my head here for most of this for you all. Which is not unusual for me to talk off the top of my head. Those that come to my temple experience it quite frequently, I guess. Today, upon waking, I have adopted a new, relatively new procedure for myself, and it's the prayer of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which my dear teacher, brought it into my existence and shared it with all of us pretty much at the last Zoom Sangha. And so as I awake, I say, I know I have awakened, and I have this precious human life, and I'm not going to waste it. And so that started my day off and then I realized that I've got this issue of what am I going to talk about today? And what I decided to talk about is how we ever do this thing called life. How do we get through it? How do we approach it? What is this thing that comes to our existence and awareness? And as we grow and we become familiar with what life is all about, we have certain questions. And the Buddha had similar questions, He was born into one type of life, and he had questions, and like the many of our teenagers have done, and which I'm sure we all have done too. He snuck out of his wonderful life at the palace to see some things, and he came across some things that he wasn't familiar with in the environment that he was living in. And in that environment, in this new environment outside of the castle walls, this castle area that he lived in, he came to see things like old age. And then he saw somebody sick. And then he saw a dead body. And then he saw people that were known as mendicants kind of wandering around, outside the town, they didn't look too well, they didn't look too happy, they certainly didn't look well fed or well clothed. And so the Buddha then spent the next few years trying to figure this out and realized he's not going to figure this out in the castle that he's living in the life that he lives in. He had great life. And so he went out and he thought, I'll study, I'll become a student and maybe someday a teacher. And he went to the best schools in India trying to figure out these questions about why are we born, why do we get sick, why do we die, why do we search for the answers to this wonderful, wonderful gift called life. And after going to a few schools, he finally realized that, oh my goodness, the answers aren't here. It's helpful, I'm learning things. In fact, he was learning so well that the teachers wanted to give him the school because he was so bright and so aware of living in this world, but he still couldn't find the answers. And so that he again saw this group of mendicants wandering around, and he decided, well, let me join them and see if they've got the answers to these questions. And so he lived the next few years as one of these mendicants. He had cut off his hair. He was living practically naked, barely clothes to keep the elements off his body, eating very, very little bit of food, getting so thin that he was moving himself towards starvation and possible death. And realizing at this point that this was not going to provide the answer either, he did this thing called meditation. I don't know whether he called it that, but he certainly decided to just be quiet, to sit somewhere under a tree, this thing we call the Bodhi tree, and to just sit there and not move until these things became evident to him. And he had this awareness and this awakening that occurred because of this process that he put himself through. And at that point, he no longer was Gautama. He became Shakyamuni Buddha, the awakened one. And everybody that he talked to recognized this awakening in him. And this path is no different from what any of us have the opportunity to experience. Some of us were brought up in a spiritual practice from infancy through many of our adult years. And some of us are just discovering this wonderful opportunity to understand spirituality a little bit fuller. And so we've taken a look at this path that the Buddha offered and said, I think I'm going to try to figure this out through this particular path. The Buddha's first teachings we know as the Four Noble Truths. And the first noble truth was a real downer, but you have to understand where it came from. People were kind of stuck in this, what they called the path of birth and death. And they didn't see much of the hope that the Buddha offered in his path, this new awakening, this new awareness that he had. And so with this new awareness, he identified that life, what we're all experiencing together, either in one form or another, one location or another, we all experience it, and it's called suffering. Or maybe a different word of is some unpleasantness or some unhappiness that we will experience in life, and nobody escapes this opportunity to experience suffering. Well, of course, when you teach that, the next logical thing that kind of happens in people's mind, well, okay, maybe we accept that everybody is going to experience this. I know I've experienced this unhappiness in my life. What causes it? And so the cause becomes the next question that the Buddha had to address for the people that were asking the questions. And he said, well, your unhappiness comes from our attachments. It becomes from things that we grasp towards us and the things that we push away that we don't want to have to experience. And that's what's causing our unhappiness. And he then gave another little hint, and he said, we can reduce this amount of unpleasantness and unhappiness that we're going to experience through this concept that he called the Noble Eightfold Path. And the Noble Eightfold Path gives us this way, and we call it a path because it really is that. It's not sequential. It's not do this, then do that. It is just simply understand that there are elements of how we live and how we choose to interact with each other that can reduce this amount of unhappiness. So now I come to the point with you that I really would like to stress this morning. And it relates back to what I experience this morning as I wake up every morning now. And you ever wonder why we always start the check-in with, what's your gratitude? Every one of us do it. Thay does it. I do it in each one of the groups that I meet with. What's your gratitude? What's your gratitude? What is it that you're grateful for? Those momentary, and none of you ever have a problem with coming up with gratitude. It seems to be right out in front of you, and you seem to see it, and you seem to understand it because it impacts you. You understand this gratitude thing that we talk about all the time. And so the Buddha, in his teachings, he added to this Noble Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths and all of the other great teachings that he came up with. he offered this concept of gratitude in our life. Gratitude for this wonderful opportunity to experience life. You know, it's said that he taught that the greatest gift that we've been given is this gift of a human life. And that this gives us the opportunity not necessarily to always experience unpleasantness and unhappiness, but to experience other things like joy and loving kindness and compassion and generosity and things that we can bring into our life to lessen this 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 unpleasantness or this unhappiness that we may experience from time to time. These things in our lives will arise for the entire extent of our life. This unpleasantness comes forward. In this practice of meditation and mindfulness that we have undertaken in this Buddhist path that we follow, comes the answer to how to reduce this. The more that we can be aware of the gratitude in each moment, the more that this unhappiness, this suffering that occurs will lessen. So if you are beleaguered by moments of anger or moments of disappointment or moments of sadness, all of those things, we can't necessarily do away with them completely, but taking a moment to be grateful for what is in the moment versus what we choose and our mind chooses to focus on sometimes, this anger, this unhappiness, this unpleasantness, this grasping for things. If we look for gratitude in these moments, and the more frequently we do it, mindfulness is just the opportunity to be in the moment, seeing it for what it is. And the Buddha teaches us, and our practice teaches us, that we can change in every single moment. We have the opportunity to change. Moving to gratitude allows us to have this lessening of whatever may be beleaguering us at the moment. It is a wonderful, wonderful practice, this gratitude. It's mentioned in many of the sutras. It's mentioned in many of the what we call chants or prayers that we offer. This opportunity for gratitude allows us to lessen the impact of our unhappiness and our disappointments in life. It may sound like an easy prescription to this illness that the Dr. Buddha described in his first teachings, the Four Noble Truths. But the real truth of the matter, as you begin to practice this, it ain't that easy. We're much more frequent to dwell on the things that are causing us this unhappiness. You ever heard the joke, I'm sure you have, where you go into the doctor and you say, "Doctor, when I move my wrists like this, it hurts." And what does the doctor tell you? Don't move your wrists like that. Well, these practices are basically the same thing. Rather than focusing in on this desperate need to feel wanted, this disappointment in our relationships or our station in life, this suffering that we go through because of our illnesses, because of the sicknesses and the disabilities that we experience as we grow older. Instead of that, allowing our mind to be the focus of those things, we, through mindfulness, take a change. And that change can happen in the moment, and we say, okay, I don't feel so good today, but what am I grateful for? Well, I'm grateful I woke up. Yeah, I got another moment of life. I'm grateful about impermanence because I know no matter how bad I feel at the moment, it's going to change. And I'm not going to experience this in every moment, in every opportunity of my life. And when I experience this anger, rather than allowing the focus of our anger, allowing these mental formations to come through and to say, "Oh, I hate that person. I hate the way they think. I hate the way they believe." Rather than allowing that focus to be part of our day or part of our moment, change it And we can change it through gratitude. We can say at that moment, but what can I have gratitude for this opportunity? I can have gratitude to understand what my anger is about. Why do I hate? Why do I feel this way about that person? What's wonderful thing about this person that I know can change that feeling of anger and disappointments? All of this can be helped by our understanding of what gratitude does. It's a powerful, powerful tool. Thich Nhat Hanh uses it all the time. He tells us to smile at our illnesses, to be aware of where we are in the current moment and those things that we can have gratitude for. You know, when Kozin first taught me forest bathing, I thought, oh, this is going to be an interesting experience, as most of the experiences that Thay Kozin has taught me. And it didn't kind of make sense to me. It really didn't. I thought, oh, all right, I'm going to walk out. I'm going to see things. I'm going to experience the forest. I love nature, but I don't take the opportunity to have great gratitude for everything that surrounds it. I'm sure Kozin has told the story. I'll tell it to you again quickly. We were driving from Trout Lake. We were driving into, I think, White Salmon, maybe to do some shopping, who knows. And it had snowed overnight. And the trees were covered with snow, and the roads were beautiful. It was still that pure white snow. The scenery, everything was just beautiful. And Kozin was riding as the passenger, and I was driving. And he kept getting caught up in this beauty of the snow, and it was like, oh, look at that, look at that tree, oh, look at this, look at that. And you know, as I'm driving, being the cynic that I can be sometime, you know, after the fifth or sixth, how beautiful it was, I just looked at Kozin and I said, okay, got it, beautiful, snow, pretty. But in that particular moment, after I said those words kind of sarcastically out of my own mouth, I had a small awakening. Yes, this is beautiful. If you just take the moment to appreciate it, to have gratitude for nature, to have wonderful feelings about what's right before our very eyes that we sometimes just walk by and miss. So this forest bathing thing, I now get it. I've become a tree hugger. I like to hug the tree. Hey, tree, you're as beautiful as you are, and I know you're losing your leaves, but don't worry about it. You're going to get your leaves back. And as I see a bug crawl across my patio out by the pool area, I say, oh, bug, get in someplace safe, find someplace warm. As the feral kitties come up on my porch and they eat the food that I've left out for them, knowing that later on in the day, the skunks and the raccoons are going to come and finish it. I call the kitties and I say, hey, kitties, come, get your food early. I want you to have some food. I'm happy to provide that for you. And in doing this act of kindness and generosity, I have the opportunity to have gratitude. And that gratitude covers whatever else is going on in my crazy old head at the moment. And there are things that undertake my life, just like you. This recent shooting and killing that we had in Utah struck me hard, because I can tell you in TikTok and Facebook and stuff, I've come across this poor individual who was murdered, and it was murder. And I can tell you, I didn't agree with anything pretty much of what this person said. But I was able to switch over to this gratitude of understanding that they're entitled to their thoughts as I'm entitled to my thoughts. And nothing about thought should ever drive us to the violence of killing people. This is the path that we have chosen, my brothers and sisters. This path of understanding in meditation and mindfulness that allows us to change at any particular moment that which may be causing us this thing that the Buddha said was unhappiness. We can change it. We cannot do away with it, but we can change it. And so I'm encouraging us all today to take on this new expression. Have an attitude for gratitude. That is something that will carry you through all the hard spots of life. Have this attitude for gratitude. When we come across things that we love, recognize it. Don't miss the opportunity to see the beautiful landscape, the snow and the trees. Don't be just happy with, yep, got it. No, enjoy it. Experience it. It carries us a long, long way. Thank you, my brothers and sisters, for this opportunity to share these words with you.